Have you ever imagined that you could create six figures in a week? I am here with Roxy today, and we want to talk about our six-figure weeks and really what kind of goes on during them. So, Rox, I want to ask you that. Did you ever imagine you could create six figures in 1 week?
If you had asked me that even, I don't know, 5 years ago, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. I'm like,
I
what?
know,
In
right?
my wildest dreams. Like, yeah, sure, I could do that. Psh. Okay, like, in all seriousness, if someone had told me that I would have had my first six-figure week in 2020, the height of the pandemic, I would have
Right?
looked at them like, how is that even
You're
like,
crazy.
you're talking gibberish. You are literally like,
Yeah,
are you on something? Like, this cannot be real.
100%.
I mean, what
100%.
about you? I mean, did you ever think that you'd do a six-figure week?
You know, I think as entrepreneurs, we all dream of that, right? Like
Totally.
we dream that we could create something that's of that magnitude. And it's kind of interesting because I look back at that dream that I had, and if I could go back to that person, I would tell that person, stay naive. Like, stay naive and just keep pushing through it because I look back and I think, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for
Yeah.
the lessons that I learned along the way. And hopefully in today's podcast, you'll start feeling confident that the experiences that you're going through are setting you up to have your own six-figure week as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Mandy, that is so right what you just said right there. Because when I had my first six-figure week, if I had not gone through what I had gone through the previous 3 years, I would have not been, one, mentally prepared for what is involved in
Right.
that. Two, I would not have had the stamina and the energy for what's involved in that. And I know we'll get into all of these.
It's so true.
And three, I wouldn't have had the professional acumen to handle what comes with. Because when you're collecting six figures in a week, there's people on the other end of those dollar bills.
You got to produce in a big way,
Right,
right?
exactly. So I just, everything I went through up to that point, the first time I did that, prepared me for that moment.
I love, love, love that. And, you know, it's interesting as I think back to really, I had a dream to do something like this. I don't know if I believed I could actually do it. I
Right.
think that, you know, of course, one of the key things for me in achieving this, I'm huge on vision boarding, and I had set my intention of what I wanted to do. And I had that vision of it, and every night I was thinking about it, but I had no idea what it would actually feel like. Like, I don't know about you. We'll get into the details of like more, but I'm curious, when you realized you hit six figures in 1 week, did you have a moment? Because for me, I went out to dinner. John was out of town. I went out to dinner with my mom and my dad and my brother, and I was like hyperventilating. They had no idea why, but inside I knew that I had like done this thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And finally, like, somehow we were talking and it came out, and they were like, what? This is so exciting. But I was still like hyperventilating inside. What about you?
I had a little bit different experience. I think because I had, I don't know, I had mentally prepared myself. I had set a goal of 50,000 for that week. And then when we passed that and it was like kept moving and going up, it was like that excitement started to take over. Where you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
we hit our goal, and like maybe we can do this. Maybe this is really going to happen.
I
And same
love
for
that.
you. I actually went out to dinner. My husband Chris and we went out to dinner with my mom and her husband, and like you're just sitting there. And so my mom's like, "So what have you been up to?" And I was like, "Well, we just had a launch, and we made over six figures. I was like, I couldn't even say the number out loud.
Right? I know.
She was like, what? Like, she was shocked. She couldn't believe it. Because, like,
Yeah.
I love my mom, but I don't tell her, like, the day-to-day or the details of anything.
But they
So,
know us. Our family knows us, right?
I know.
They have seen us at our lowest and at our highest, and so it's a
Well,
different
I love
perspective.
my mom's reaction. She was like, I just love her. She was not shocked, put it that way. She was
Mm.
like, of course you can. And that
Oh,
just
that's
speaks to how much my mom believes in me, which I love. Like, she truly, like,
yeah.
she's got this, right? And it gives me confidence when I'm like, can I do this, right?
Right.
But it was very surreal. It was very surreal to, like, see the number in the bank account and like say it out loud. And honestly, you know, the first thing I did?
What?
The first thing I did was write a tithing check to the church from that.
Mm. I love that. Giving it back.
Mm-hmm. Because prior to that, I had prayed and I said, you know, like, this is what I want to accomplish, but I only want to do it if it's in your will. And
Yeah.
I want to glorify God through that. And
Yeah.
so I felt like, okay, like, here's your money, God. Like, you earned this.
I love it how, like, you just remind me, like, I love talking about these things with you because it is so real. And it just reminds me, like, just the other night I was talking to John. I don't feel like I did this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of my success that I have, I don't feel like it's because I'm some amazing human.
Same.
I
Totally.
really feel like I have partnered with God,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I have said to him, you know, use me. What do you need me to do? Or actually another one is show me the way. Show me what you would have me do. And I mean, that's how I found you. That's how we got connected. I literally prayed you into existence in my life, and it has been such a blessing. And so I love it that you bring it back to that. And those tithing checks are fun to write,
Oh,
right? Because
yeah.
they're so amazing. So I love that. Oh, that just makes me happy. Okay, let's talk about the mindset prep that has to go into getting ready to have a six-figure launch in 1 week. Do you have any techniques that you used?
So, number one, the way I went about it is probably a little different than you did, Mandy. I actually hired someone specifically to help me do the administrative pieces. Like, I had a team, I had people there working for me, but they had their roles, they had their tasks. Like, I needed someone who could just dedicate to help me. And just knowing that person was there gave me comfort and being able to actually launch. Like, honestly, without her, let's be real. Without her, I would not have done that, period. And here's why.
Wow.
She actually was pushing me. So as much as wanted to do this, she's like, okay, here's the date that we're going to launch. And I was like, no, it's too early. I'm not ready. Like, I can't, like, because
That's amazing.
I was not mentally prepared. And she was like, no, this is the date.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to happen. And I'm like, she's like, we can do it all. We can get it all done. Like, all the administrative stuff that has to take place. But for me, it was definitely like I didn't feel like my mind was going to be ready by that date. And in all actuality, it honestly wasn't, Mandy. I'm just being completely transparent and honest right now. I think back and I'm like, how did I really do that? I don't really know. I mean, without her, she set the date and held my feet to the fire on that date. And
yeah,
like, I don't know if we want to get into like the behind the scenes, but we can. I know we're talking about mindset right now, but like, there's some behind the scenes stuff that was taking place that I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. And I actually spent $5,000 on Facebook ads to get the people into my launch. So it was like, you got to show up.
It's like an act of faith.
It really was. It
Right?
really was. It was like, I remember turning on the ad and being like, well, there's no going back because the date's on there and everything's set up for that. So here we go.
I love that. You know, one of my favorite quotes is the Lord loves action. And
Mm,
I think of that often because a lot of times we pray for something to happen, you know, like, oh, help us to make this or hit this rank or achieve this goal. And then we sit and we wait and
mm,
we're like, when
mm.
is it going to happen? When is it going to happen?
Ew.
And so anytime I hear that in my head, when is it going to happen? I hear the Lord loves action. What is the action I should be taking to achieve that? And obviously, like you setting up your Facebook ads and hit and go, like that was amazing. So,
It was
well,
like, okay, now's the time. Get it together, Roxanne. Figure it out. Like, do what you got to do. Keep pressing forward. And, if you haven't listened to our last podcast on the same wind blows on us all, we talk about that. Like, you just have to keep pressing
yeah,
forward. And so that's what I did. Like, but it was almost like you've heard of like burning the ships, right? And there's no turning
yeah,
back. I mean, hiring this person, I paid her $5,000 as well. So I paid her $5,000 and then I paid $5,000 in Facebook ads. So it was like, you got to make this work to at least recoup
yeah,
what you just spent.
the cost. Well, so my experience was a little different because I actually had people coming to me asking me to teach them what I was doing.
Mm.
And so I decided, like, because I kept saying to you, should I start something? I'm not sure I can handle this right now. And of course, you were like, do it, girl, do it. I don't think either of us knew what we were getting into at the time. Um, but I was basically answering a call, like instead of I was getting on a phone call with lots of people, like people kept messaging, hey, can I get on a Zoom with you? Can you teach me what you're doing? And finally I was like, shoot, man, I could save so much time if I did 1 week because really what I teach and it takes a while to wrap your mind around it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would meet with them for like one Zoom and try and explain, like, how do you explain what you're doing in 1 hour where you have gone from not creating to being a massive creator, right? Like there are things and recipes that you have to follow and
Well,
all
there's
the things,
layers to
right?
it.
There's so many layers. And so I, in my mind, was like, well, if I could do this in maybe 2 or 3 days. And finally, it was like, okay, it's going to have to be 5 days because I knew exactly what I wanted to teach. I had no back end support minus Social Fox and calling into Roxy and being like, what about this? What about that? Because I have always been nervous to hire people.
Mm.
Which is maybe we should do a podcast on hiring people because for me, that is something that I've had to overcome. And now I have a team of people. But back then, um, I was nervous to hire somebody like because I was responsible to tell them what to do and how to do it. And then I had to manage them. And I am not a micromanager at all, like at all.
Yeah, me
Like
either.
there's no micromanaging inside of my system. And so, um, as I was going through it, I actually thought, well, if I can get 20 grand, that would be awesome. That would be amazing. And after we opened cart, within 3 days, we had hit six figures and beyond.
I know.
And it was, I mean, I say beyond just 100,000. We never hit seven, which is actually our goal this year is to do a seven figure. But it was like I look back at that and I think that's why at the beginning I was like, just naively go into go for it because there was so much to be learned from that 1 week. I
Yes.
look back on that week and I think, wow, the lessons. Let's talk a little bit about the lessons that we learned. For me, one of the lessons that I learned was um, just do the work.
Yeah.
Like just show up. We talk about showing up for your dreams. What is it that you actually want to do? And show up and do it. You in all actuality, we all have within us what it takes to really honor and and do what we know deep inside. Like I feel strongly that each one of us has this voice within, and we only let bits and pieces of it out. It's really hard to open up to the space where we're like, okay, now I'm truly using my inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that week taught me to not hold back, to open up. And I still find myself kind of coming, it's safe, right? Like when we can like protect ourselves and like not fully be out there. Like even this podcast, I'm like, oh man, we're opening it up even more. Like, here we go. But the thing is that the more you're willing to give, the more you will get.
It's so true. That's the same lesson I learned was we tend to hold ourselves back because we feel like we're not knowledgeable enough or we don't have enough experience, right? But going through that first launch taught me, number one, I had plenty of knowledge to share. I mean, there was
Right.
like I could possibly share it in a week. And two, I had plenty of experience. I could have done that launch years prior, but I had that imposter syndrome, right? That was what always, because I, like you, had people asking me to teach what I taught. And
Yes.
for years, people actually asked me for years. And I had people that would message me and I would consult with them one-on-one. And, it wasn't the same. And so finally I'm like, you know what? Now's the time. It's like now or never. And going through the process and going through actually like the action taking of it, I built so much confidence in, yes, I know what I'm talking about. Yes, I can help people. Yes, I know how to teach what I do, right? Because that's the other layer, right? Can I explain this well enough for people to understand?
Totally.
Right? And it's such a fulfilling feeling to know at the end of the week, number one, you've helped hundreds of people, right? Because not everyone joins your program, but hundreds of people. And then those who decide to go with you further believe in you. And so it's like this weird mind shift where it's like, wow, okay, if I didn't believe in myself before, all these people believe in me, so why wouldn't I believe in myself too?
Right.
It was like this weird thing that was happening for me, at least for me personally, like this weird, like, okay, these people believe in me. But then it's like, oh my gosh, these people believe in me.
I got to deliver.
Right? I got to make this happen.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, okay, let's talk a little bit about the systems that we put into place for a 6-figure launch. Like I'm sitting here, Roxy, you know me. I always have all these ideas and I'm like, I think Roxy and I need to create a program where we teach 6-figure launches, like you and I together.
Yes.
Because there's so much wisdom in the different perspectives. A lot of times what happens is we think it has to be done one way. Mm-hmm. And in all actuality, there's no exact right way to do it as long as you show up and do and you have your systems in place. Yeah. So for me, I could have never ever done a launch without Social Fox. Same. And without the systems that I had in place to follow up, to text people, to do the replays, the funnel, the landing pages, like all of those things. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have created the 6-figure income without. And so if you're sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I want to have a 6-figure week. I want to have multiples. We've had multiples, it's not something where it just happens one time. You can actually duplicate it over and over and over again, but it will require an investment of not just time, but a little bit of money. Yeah. And Roxy put money into Facebook ads. I did mine a little different. It was all organic, like come into my group and do it that way. But what I had invested was in a system that was my assistant so that I wasn't personally having to follow up with everybody. It was all automated. Yeah. Yeah. The system, that's true. I mean, the first launch I did would have never, ever taken place without a system. And it's really funny. Social Fox was born from that first launch.
If you remember,
Yes,
Mandy, I said, "Oh, I have this program that everything's in one place."
and we were like, "Give us access
Like, where's
right
the
now."
link? I was like, "Oh, they want to buy this. Cool." So yeah, without that, I mean, there's so many layers to it, but it's when you look
Yeah.
at it holistically, it's really not that complicated, right? When you think about it at first, you're like, "Oh my gosh, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that." But once you get it all built out, like for you, Mandy, I know you've done multiple launches with the same system each time, with the little minor tweaks here and there based on the
Yeah.
feedback you get, and just perfect. Anything can be perfected over time, but like that truly was part of the success. Was, I guess we could start building this, right? You have to have the right mindset. You need to have the right.
Yep.
You need to know what you're teaching. You need to have belief in that. But then
You need to
also,
have the course, the knowledge of what
yeah,
you're going to share
exactly.
with people.
Exactly. The belief in what you're teaching, the knowledge. We can do a whole podcast on KBD, which is my husband's
Yeah.
little acronym for sales. So you have to have KBD. You have to have systems. And I don't know how anyone runs their business without systems. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to people, this. I
They
talk
run
to
a
people.
hobby. It's a hobby without the systems, in my opinion.
Exactly. It really is. And I mean, and what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about having a Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet that you keep track of people on. No, it's more robust than that. And it actually does a lot of work for you in automating things. Like Mandy said, automating
Yeah.
her text messages, automating her emails, even automating onboarding of people who join the
Yep.
program. I mean, you have to have all of that. And like, I don't know how people can have a 6-figure launch without that.
I don't either. And I 100% agree that in order to up level, you have to up level your systems. Like, period, end of story. And just this week I was meeting, I've got a whole I did my 6-figure launch without any setters or closers. So if anybody's listening who's a coach and you're like, "Oh, I want to do a big 6-figure, week, and so I'm going to listen to this podcast." I literally decided I was going to put together the boot camp. And here's the key. I spoke and Roxy spoke to a need. What have people been asking you for? What do people come to you about? What do they want to learn from you? Mm-hmm. If you're like, "Oh, it would be really good to do a whole course on how to sell t-shirts on Etsy," but you have never actually done that, that's not going to be your 6-figure launch, right? I always love to say you can't give what you don't have. And so what is a skill? What's something that you've been through? And it's not even sometimes a skill. I mean, sometimes it's like, have you had an experience with something that now, because you've experienced that, you can walk people through the process of healing through that, or through making it through, whatever it is. But as soon as you have, what that pain point is, you can run with that, and you can take that and really monetize it. And so for me, I didn't have any fancy sellers or setters or closers, which I'm in a program now that's going to teach me how to up level our business so we can go to 7 and 8 figures, which is what we want in a week, like once we've got something going. But the interesting thing about it is, as I meet with these my new sales team coaches, and we've gone through the system, they're like, "Don't change anything." And it's because we have figured it out, right? Like, once you know what you're supposed to be talking about, you don't want to change that process over and over again. This is something I find all the time in business. Mm-hmm. Is you try something for a day or a week or a month, and you're like, "Ooh, I need to shift it." No, just curate it. Yep. Curate it and make it better. Yep. So instead of me going in and changing things up, instead we're just adding to it. We're adding value. We're bringing in additional systems to support it. And I think that there's value in that.
Absolutely. So. And I'll add too, my launches, I didn't do with any setters or closers either. Right? I mean, so it's totally possible to have a 6-figure launch or 6-figure week, multiple weeks, without a setter or a closer. And it's just you. Right? You're the face. Yeah. I remember getting on Zoom calls and people are like, "Whoa, you're here with me."
It's you. I know.
Well, yeah.
I think I was one of them. right?
Yes.
Because I joined your program on your very first launch. And I was actually probably the last person to join because I was on the fence. I was just like, oh, should I do this? It's a big program. And what I will speak to that is when you invest in yourself, you show up differently.
Yes.
And I love that concept of if you invest big in yourself, you're going to show up big in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you might have all the tools, but what you need is a kick in the pants. And that investment is going to be the kick in the pants.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So,
That's so true.
yeah.
Well, do we want to talk about some of the behind the scenes of what happens
Yes.
behind a six-figure
I mean,
launch?
I bet people will want to hear, right? Like, I know I would. If
Yes.
I was like trying to do a six-figure launch again and I was listening, which by the way, I watched your six-figure launch and one other, and that was it. That was all the knowledge I had about six-figure launches. I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can figure this out. But okay, let's talk behind the scenes.
Well, I don't know about you, Mandy, and I feel like I remember us having conversations about this, but maybe my memory is not 100%. I'll be honest with you. The morning before each day, because we model the challenge, like the 5-day challenge or the 5-day boot camp. And so you're showing up live each day to 500, 1,000 people, however many people show up live with you. And then you have all the replays, right? And each morning, it was like I literally made my script the morning of.
I love this.
It's awful. It's like, how did I even pull this off?
Are we really dishing this?
We're really going there, Mandy. Okay, we're really going there. Now, I do not recommend this. Let me just preface this. I don't recommend this method. If you're someone who works well under pressure, okay, maybe. But like, I definitely recommend you being more prepared. But here is why I wasn't all like I said, I hired this individual. She told me this is the date. I turn on the ads. And because, you're writing emails, you're writing, text message follow-ups, you're getting the funnel situated.
So much.
Getting, the onboarding. So when they do join, they have something to engage with, right? I'm building out all that stuff and still kind of like figuring out, okay, what am I teaching? I knew what I was teaching because obviously I wrote the ads based on that. But like the actual script day to day, I had not written until literally the day I was giving it. And I mean, even down to pitch day, I wrote the script of my pitch the morning that I was giving the pitch. And I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you remember this, Mandy, because she was there for my first one, right? So pitch day,
I was there.
Show up, I teach, and then you move into the pitch. And I literally read my pitch word for word because I was so nervous. Like the flutters in the stomach, like keeping the voice box under control, not letting the voice waver, right? And just reading it. And then I was like, okay, we'll see you later, guys. And got off.
That is so funny. My very first pitch day, my husband couldn't even listen to the whole thing. He was like, oh my gosh, you were so nervous. I could tell you were reading. I'm like, he's like, I couldn't stick around because I was just feeling your nerves. I'm like, I know, right? But I love this because this is exactly what our viewers and our subscribers need to hear. That it's great when it's perfect, but getting it done is even better. And sometimes we have to activate deadline mode. And it's like deadline is activated, get it done. So for me, I knew my material so well at this point that just like you, I had mapped it out, but I was curating that script up until the moment I went live.
Yes, same.
And I am not a very scripted person, but here's what I've learned about launches. It's very important for me to stay on script so that I can provide the highest value possible instead of just showing up and, saying whatever I want.
Yeah.
You're listening to our podcast. I can talk, right? Like I could go off on lots of tangents. The script kept me very focused in on exactly what I wanted to achieve for that day.
Yes.
And I actually learned this with YouTube as well. Like I used to love to turn the camera on and just talk. And I am now very scripted on there because there's a point. I want my viewers to have a point that comes through with that. And so all of us think, oh, we need to get all these things done before we can have the success. And that is just flat out a lie.
Yeah.
Now, it's, of course, we have to prep for things, but we're never going to have it perfect before it's actually done. What I was busy doing was writing emails morning of and like reminders, setting up ManyChat, like getting all my social fox texting. And mine was a total disaster week one. Like I sent texts out early, late, wrong days. Like the emails were like, it was not a perfect launch in any sense of the word. But the important thing is I showed up with my energy, with my message, and I delivered that. And so even if it's messy in the background and I'm like freaking out, I'm like, oh my gosh, what? In fact, I don't know if you remember this, Roxy. I forgot to set up my payment page on my very first launch until about 30 minutes before I was going live to open cart. I just like,
that's kind of coming back to me. You reached out to me for help with that, right?
yeah. And like we weren't super close at the time. So it's not like I had access to you. Like I couldn't just text you. And I'm just like, what do I even do? I was legit freaking out. Like inside, I have not thrown up since I was 5. I wanted to throw up that day. Okay.
Oh my gosh, no.
Not gonna happen. And I literally 2 minutes before I went live, I had the thought, why are you spending so much time? This was 2 minutes before I went live, right? Freaking out. You should be getting ready to go live because probably nobody's going to purchase today. You could get on right after this and fix this problem. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with it. And somebody purchased I think an hour after. So I finished my live. I got on, you had messaged me back. I fixed it all. And that very first sale went through. And it was like, whew. So one thing to learn from this is it's not going to be perfect and it's messy, right? And there's
100%.
all these things. You just got to start showing up and providing the value, and then the compensation will come.
Well, think about this, Mandy. What if we had said, oh, we're not ready. We got to wait. The emails aren't in place. The texts aren't in place. I don't have my scripts done yet. Oh, I need another 2 weeks. Oh, and then, what? Are you magically going to get it done? Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. But I am so thankful that I was like, you know what? Even though it's not perfect, even though half of it's not done, I'm doing this. Like we are doing this right now and getting it done. And it was blessed because I think it was blessed because we took action. Like you said earlier, God blesses action. Like we took action. And one thing I like to say is taking imperfect action. Because anytime I've ever taken imperfect action, if I think back to all the times I took imperfect action in my business, it always paid off. Every single time it paid off. And those moments are those times when I was like, oh, I'm not ready. I got a plan. I got to get ready to get ready to get ready to get ready.
Right.
And then you launch or you do the thing. You're like, well, nothing happened. That didn't work.
Yeah.
And you wasted all that time that you could have just figured that out right from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. One thing I think about when I am like, how did I do that? Like, what was the process that I went through to achieve this? And I always go back to, I reverse engineered everything. What I knew best, what I was doing at the time that was working, I reverse engineered it. And then I figured, okay, what do I need to give to add enough value to show them that I'm worth, paying $6,000 to be in my academy?
Yeah.
And so if you're wondering, but how do I set up, the pitch for a 6-figure week? That's what I did. I reverse engineered it. And I didn't pitch until day 4. Mm-hmm. Now, some people will pitch day 3, but for me, it just didn't, because I was also sharing Social Fox. So I actually did start pitching on day 3. It was Social Fox. And then I pitched the academy on day 4. I don't know. How did you decide on your content that you were going to do?
Well, I had the experience. So I was teaching about Facebook ads, and then the program was about all types of ads, all social ads. And I had been doing Facebook ads on an agency basis for clients for years. I mean, I was managing over $1 million in ad spend a year on Facebook by itself, not counting LinkedIn and Pinterest and all these other places. So I knew my material inside and out. And because people kept asking me, was like, okay, so let's figure out, when it comes to a launch or a launching of a program, you decide you're either going to teach the first step of each step, like the first piece of each step along the path to get them to the end result, right? Or you teach just the beginning part and then the program covers everything else, okay? So that's what I decided. I decided, okay, I just need to teach them the beginning part because what I was teaching in my launch, nobody was really talking about.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
it was so important. It's still important today. Like what I was teaching is still applicable today. And that's what I decided. I'm like, I need to lay the right foundation because there's so much noise out there of all these other methods and this and that and the other. I'm like, but that's not really that's like the quick fix, right? You hear like $5 a day ads. I'm
Right.
like, that doesn't work. So I just decided I got to like relay the foundation for everyone. And so whether they join my program or not, they got that huge value. And
Yeah.
then in the program, it was like, okay, we had that foundation laid. Now it's time to do the real work. So that's how I decided. What about you?
I love that. Well, for me, I just listened to what people wanted and I literally gave them everything. But what I teach is complicated,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I taught my whole system and I teach my whole system. I'm about to do another boot camp here in 4 weeks. So I teach everything. It's just very complicated and it takes time to implement. And a lot of times, a lot of my clients, they want to shorten that gap. They want to take the elevator instead of taking the stairs 50 floors up. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm ready to hit this hard. Show me the way. And so I actually walk them through systematically how to build out their processes, their systems, so that they can support a large influx of leads
Mm-hmm.
all at once.
And
So
enrollments too, right? I mean, clients and
yeah,
customers and leads, the whole bit.
if somebody came to you and said, I want to have a 6-figure week, and you had like 1 minute to talk to them about that, what would your advice be? We did not script this at all. So like, this is like off the cuff. Like, what would you say to them if they were like, I want to do what you did? What would your advice be?
I would say that you have to believe you can do it first. It's not going to happen unless you believe it. And you need to do the work. You need to do, like, it's totally possible. I feel like I had the same conversation with you, Mandy. Like, yeah, it's totally possible. Like, you can totally, like, anybody.
Yeah.
I feel like any person on planet Earth can do this. Now, obviously, there's a level of skill there. So let's, bell
Right.
curve. But most people could do this. And what it really comes down to is, do you believe you can do it? And do you have something that people need? People not just desire or like, oh, it'd be cool to know that. No, like they need it for something in their life. And as long as you're answering a need, you can totally have a 6-figure launch. Totally. That's what I did. That's what you did, right? We just answered a need that people had. So that would be my advice. Like, yes, you can do it. You need to make sure you're ready to do the work. You need to have the right belief in yourself. So believe that you can do it. And then make sure you're answering the problem. You are providing a solution to the problem somebody has that it's a great need in their life. What about you? What would you say to them?
Well, for me, I think what was super helpful was clarity. So, I think we all dream of having these big, successful businesses, but it wasn't until I had taken imperfect action for a year or two consistently where I began to get clear on what I was really good at talking about. And so I had that clarity, number one. I had taken action. Sometimes we're like, we want to throw it together this week.
Okay, I don't recommend that.
And yeah, like it definitely requires prep. So I started in June prepping for an August launch. And then I got clear on my intention. So not only had I spent some time clarifying my voice, but then I got clear on my intention. Now, I was hoping in my belief in myself that I could pull in 20,000. That was my hope. I was like, if I could do 20,000, this is going to be amazing. But I had done the numbers and I had gotten crystal clear on what it would take to do 100, 150, 200, 250, 300. Like I knew the numbers so well, minimum of what I wanted to do. And then I set a goal and then I set like a big audacious goal. And I think it's important to set those goals into place.
Yes.
Because when you can set those up and you have that intention, your mind actually shows up to fulfill that. Yeah. So I had my vision board, I had my daily reminders, I had my spreadsheets of if I can do this, how many students do I need? This is my price. Like I got crystal clear on those things, which then led me on a clear path to the 6-figure week. Not only did I get clarified, I clarified my voice, then I got clear on what I was going to teach. I reverse engineered that. And then I got clear on what the projections could be. And the exciting thing about that was I've probably one of the funnest lessons I've learned is you're absolutely right. Anyone can do this 100%. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that I'm special because I've had these 6-figure weeks, right? Like,
yeah. I don't feel like I'm any different than any other person, whether they've done this or not.
Yeah. Like anyone can do it as long as you set that intention, you fulfill that need, and you actually you can fulfill the product as well. Yeah. And every launch I've had since has grown. Yes. And that's what's so exciting. Like this last launch I did, I was like, girl, you're shooting too low. Like, what the heck? Because it's growing each time, which is awesome. But it like in my mind, what was going on is, well, maybe I could do 50 to 100K more, right? Like instead of being like, why not shoot for 7 figures in a launch?
Yeah, because double, triple, quadruple it.
Right. It's kind of like going for 20,000 instead of, doing the 6 figures. Like if I could do 20, that would be great. But I knew the numbers for the 6 figures. And so part of me is like, I've been holding myself back with that small-mindedness of even having a cap. Right. Mm-hmm. So part of me is like, I should set a goal of like that minimum and then expect that greatness is going to show up because I'm showing up in big ways.
Oh, so what I do is I'll set a goal and then I set a stretch goal. I literally call it a stretch goal. And the stretch goal is like that big, hairy, audacious goal. You're like, wow, that'd be really cool if I did that.
Yeah.
But it's something like with your mind or psychology or something, you set your regular goal, right? Like, okay, this feels doable. I could totally make this goal. But then you set that stretch goal. And that's really what you're working towards is that stretch goal.
Yeah. I love that. As I think about kind of the mindset that has been holding me back from those bigger goals, it's the systems, like what we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I hired a new coach to help me with grander systems. If I want to do a 7-figure launch, I have to have systems in place to support that. And right now, my systems support a 6-figure launch, and it's time to expand to a 7-figure system and then on to 8. And so it, brings it right back to the beginning. Like anyone can do this. And we 100% believe in you that you can do this as well.
Yes. And
it's just a matter of taking that action, setting up the systems, and then having the courage to actually show up and do it.
Yes. Yes. You can do it. I believe in every single one of you who is listening. I truly do. I believe every single person can do this. If you have the desire to do this and you're willing to do the work, hands down, totally possible. So.
Totally. I love it. Amazing. Oh, this was such a fun episode. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Yes. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.